James,
Raph.
I've come to appreciate slop content.
Okay. But you have to be in a certain mindset, I've learned.
This is true. So I was at a Bucks over the weekend, and on day 2, at around 2 a.m., there was a point where we were playing basically slop videos, like almost like a Vine style, insane videos on YouTube of just like slop content without the sound on the TV, with kind of techno pumping behind it. And we were quote unquote pretending to be brain dead and just appreciating it.
Sure. Yeah. You're role playing as someone who might enjoy that kind of thing.
Who might enjoy that kind of thing and take it as literally as one can, realizing in the process that actually this is a really nice way to live. Just see stuff and be like, oh, what the hell?
What? Is that real? Wow.
Wow. Oh my, wait, I don't get it. What? What the heck? Oh. But that is actually a lovely way to live.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, especially like, now that 90% of social media is kind of AI generated slop. I mean, the example we were talking about at the pub before, it became viral on X, but there's like a Sora, like OpenAI Sora generated thing where it's just like a series of like extremely muscular tattooed criminals in like a US courtroom. And the judge will say, for the crimes that you are being sentenced for the court today, this court sentenced you to 7,500 years in prison. And there's these giant muscular guys who are held down with chains. And they say, in every single video, with no variation, 7,500 years? Take off these chains and say it again. And that's the whole video.
Yeah.
And there's just 500 variations of that where the guys just get bigger and the sentences get longer. I was in the same mindset as you. I didn't get into the flow state as you did, where I was watching that and being like, man, I wish I was just like stupid enough to think that this was real.
Yeah. And look, here's a little secret. Here's a pro tip. What you need to do is pretend role play.
Yeah, just go, what would it feel like to be someone who thinks this is real and interesting?
Yeah, pretend that you're brain damaged, and then guess what? You'll find that the feeling is really nice. Yeah. And so you can actually just be brain damaged while pretending to be brain damaged.
You can create that flow state, and the only thing that's holding you back is your own fear of shame.
You're dead right, mate.
Let the slop wash over you, mate. All right, folks, we've got a stacked couple of episodes coming for you. Excuse me. Sorry, I was just opening a beer. We have a stacked couple of episodes on our free episode number 1, which is going to all of you. We're going to talk about what is essentially the biggest news in business right now with a bit of a tech dimension, which is the fist fight between Netflix and Paramount to purchase Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
This is, the down round angle is that Netflix have their bid in, $72 billion US. Paramount's coming with a hostile bid of over 100, cash only, backed by the Saudis. But if Netflix get this over the line, it will be the final colonization of like the Hollywood industry, of the film industry, the culture, the dream factory by tech. So we're going to get into the nitty gritty of that. Then, on the second half, in our premium episode, we're going to be talking about the Apple exodus continues.
Yeah, but it's interesting this time because we have a gentleman who was in charge of UI and software UI leaving, and Apple lovers have taken a victory lap about this. They think it's the best news ever that this guy has gone to Meta.
So that's interesting.
That is interesting.
There are also a few other names that are floating around who might be leaving Apple that the company and the fans are less happy about. So we're going to be talking about that as well. And then finally, again, second half of the show, we're going to be talking about Meta is exiting the metaverse.
Yeah.
Meta leaving the metaverse. That's the whole reason they did a rebrand, folks.
Very interesting.
And they've spent $108 billion on it.
Or at least scaling down. We'll get into that. At the very, very top, though, before we get into the Netflix stuff, I did want to quickly follow up on last week's prediction markets episode, because I feel like, once again, after we did our episode, there was like immediately way more talk. We'll just go over it quickly because I don't want to relitigate everything we said last week. But, one of the key points that I think we were trying to get across is that the supporters of these prediction markets, both the people who actually work for them, but are otherwise in this weird chorus of cheerleaders or whatever it is who, for whatever reason, are glamorizing the CEOs and the people, they've been going off since our episode, maybe because of our episode, I don't know. But for example, the Kalshi CEO, he said on stage, the day after we'd recorded our episode, that the end goal is to financialize everything.
Yes. Create a market for everything.
Create a market for absolutely everything. And then I saw someone who was genuinely serious, I could not believe this, an utter moron being like, yep, this is what I've been saying. Instead of ordering a pizza through Uber Eats, you will say on a prediction market, I bet I won't receive a pepperoni pizza for $20 in the next 15 minutes. Someone will take the no side and deliver that pepperoni pizza within 20 minutes. This is the death of food delivery companies. And he was dead serious.
When I hear that, my immediate thought is, I remember another tweet. There's always a fucking tweet where someone has taken something to its logical extreme and everyone's been like, that's not how the world works. It was the person being like, I can't remember the exact phrasing, but they said some version of, you can purchase an artwork, make an NFT of it.
I think it was a diamond ring.
A diamond ring and destroy the ring.
Yeah, if you lose your engagement ring, you haven't actually lost it.
I think they actively said you can destroy it or burn the painting or whatever it was. And the value has been perfectly captured by this digital receipt.
Yeah.
You don't need the item anymore.
No.
The NFT does the scarcity for you.
Yeah, it's when someone says something so insanely stupid and obviously incomprehensible to any normal person, this is not it.
This is not it. And I think there's something to be said about the fact that prediction markets are sort of the inheritor of the crypto thing. There's a lot of the same people are playing, are swimming around in that soup. But I think the general idea is that, is in the same with a lot of the crypto stuff, when everyone was like self-custody, you have sovereignty over your own money. And it's like, no one wants that.
No.
The vast majority of people want to not have to think about their money and would love to be able to call someone up and scream at them if something goes wrong with their money.
Yeah.
Something goes wrong with a transaction, they want to be able to call MasterCard and abuse some call center recipient in Bangladesh or whatever.
And if someone wants to order a pizza, they want to go onto an app and say, give me pizza.
Yeah, they look at a menu and be like, oh, I haven't had the potato and sausage pizza these guys do before. I'm going to order that.
How far will the world have fallen when normal people,
the
my
average
mum,
person,
is this is just the way we do things now. I bet I won't receive Thai food for the family, And
obviously this is extreme, but it does go to show that if you follow the logic of, wow, prediction markets are discovering truth, discovering price, discovering truth, aligning incentives.
Yeah.
Why don't we run the entire economy that way?
Yeah.
And it's like we kind of do, but there's actually a lot of intermediaries and organic stuff around that.
Yes.
Such as
people producing products and setting a price.
Yeah.
What about when I get sued, instead of me paying my lawyer, I just put a bet on Polymarket that I'll get off. And in order to get off, it means I'll get $1 million because some other people somewhere in the world are taking the other side of this bet. Anyway, it's obviously utterly ludicrous.
It's ludicrous. But the point is that, yes, the conversation has kicked along. And the other point I would make, we're going to move on to Netflix in a second, but it does underscore a lot of the things we were talking about last week about prediction markets. Bloomberg, as part of a story, published a chart where they were looking at weekly notional volume on Kalshi by category. And it's just it's like a split up column graph to show where customers are spending on their bets.
Yeah.
Well, number one, you can see that the weekly volume has exploded over 2025. So that's, let's call that a dub for me in my prediction that prediction markets are going to become a big deal, more of a big deal. But if you look at it, I'm just eyeballing it and I can't see the actual figures, but I would say, based on the breakdown, over 90% of their volume is sports prediction markets. And that's compared to elections, politics, economics, crypto, and other.
And people betting that they won't receive a pizza in 20 minutes.
Maybe that's under other. But if you look at the chart, the sports is just dominating 90% every single month.
90%? Say it again and take off these J's.
Take off these J's and say it again. All right.
Sorry.
We're becoming a real Rogan-esque podcast, I feel. But anyway, the point being that, when we said last week as our thesis, everything is sports bet. In fact, the name of the episode was Everything is Sports Bet Now. And this is not actually rational, intelligent, turning machine intelligence, discovering truth.
Yeah.
It's just a whole bunch of guys who really like to punt on stuff.
On sport.
And sport primarily. Anyway.
Yes. Yeah, it's just sports betting.
That's the way it goes. Anyway, that was us closing the loop, taking a victory lap on last week's episode. If you didn't listen to last week's, you're probably like, I'm here to listen to fucking hear about Netflix.
Yeah.
That's the name of the episode. Anyway, biggest story of the week. It came through over the weekend.
I'll say still developing story as well.
It's still developing.
Let's note that up front.
We're putting that right up top. But basically, what kicked it all off is on the 5th of December, Netflix agreed to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery's studios, HBO and HBO Max, and the rest of its streaming division for an equity value of $72 billion US dollars, and that's 82 billion enterprise value. There's a bunch of debt on there as well. Splitting Warner Brothers Discovery in two. So all the rest of it, which is kind of like linear TV, so like CNN, like the Discovery Channel, all the rest of it gets carved off into another listed company called Discovery Global, which is like a shit pile. You wouldn't want to be interested in that company. But all the juicy stuff, which is like the movie studios, streaming, all their IP. And to be clear, what is Warner Brothers IP?
Harry Potter.
DC superheroes, so like Batman and Superman and stuff like that. Everything that's on HBO.
HBO.
So all the HBO shows.
Prestige TV.
Prestige television, The Sopranos, The White Lotus. All this stuff is going, and then their incredibly deep library of content that they've built out since 1905. I believe 1905 it was founded, or maybe it was like slightly later, but it was early 20th century. Netflix, the streaming titan, has agreed or made the bid to buy for $72 billion, which is per share $23.25 plus $4.50 in Netflix stock per WBD share, closing in third quarter 2026, assuming, and this is what we're going to get into, it's going to get past the regulatory hurdles, not just in the US, but regulators have to sign off on that in the EU, in the UK, in Australia, in all the rest of it. It's an incredibly complex deal, one of the worst ones that you would possibly want to be involved in as a lawyer, and probably the most profitable as a lawyer as well. Anyway, the other side of this is that Paramount Skydance, which only recently merged, which is run by David Ellison, son of Larry Ellison of Oracle. He's the one who masterminded the merger of Skydance and Paramount, have come in with a hostile $30 per share, all cash tender, $108.4 billion.
What the hell?
That was actually as of today. So Netflix's deal, which is agreed on, and they announced it, and Warner Brothers were like, wonderful. David Zaslav, CEO, was like, amazing. Netflix are buying us. But Paramount Skydance, who have been trying to make their own moves, coming in with this $108.4 billion deal, including a bunch of like cable assets that Netflix doesn't want, went straight to the shareholders, didn't speak to management, and that's where we're sitting. So we'll get into like some of the meat of it, but that's kind of, those are the top line numbers, essentially.
Look, I'm going to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
I find it hard to get excited about Holly Weird and that aspect of things and the degenerates that come out of there.
Yep.
But
the sickos who run Hollyweird.
Yeah, that kind of gizmos and like movie studios and whatnot. But I am interested in several aspects of this.
Okay.
I am interested obviously in like the broader narrative, the meta narrative, obviously, of, yes, as you say, technology versus entertainment versus production studios and the distribution implications. And I'm also interested in the future of Netflix and the future of consuming content. So I'm just throwing both of those things out there and hopefully we cover them.
And also, before I let you continue, Raph did make it might have been one of the episodes we did about Netflix. It could have been an end of year thing. He predicted Netflix was done.
Oh, look, no.
Not done, doomed in the long run.
Doomed in the long run. Like, Netflix is a company that I have not had a good gauge on because I'm just not that interested in general. No, I still hold strong to my thesis that, okay, let's talk about my thesis.
Okay.
The theory is, in the long run, something like Netflix will lose to Apple, Amazon, Google because the three other competitors don't need to make money off content.
Yep.
And they can leverage the, whatever subscription via content, Apple TV, whatever it is, to make profit elsewhere, such
Yep.
as on devices or in other areas of subscription, or in Amazon's case, selling toilet paper or whatever it is. I'm somewhat tweaking my own theory, and I'm still kind of coming up with this hypothesis on the fly, that is there at a certain point a tipping point, basically? The more people who are on your platform, the more advertisers want to be on it, and you have obviously a flywheel here and like a cycle. Is there then some point, some magical tipping point of market share when you become the aggregator in the space and it no longer matters that your competitors have a massive margin advantage against you in that they don't need to make a profit because you have such a dominant position and that flywheel is so powerful that, that competition no longer matters and that like difference in margin doesn't matter. That's the kind of hypothesis I'm trying to figure out or add to my own thing.
Yeah.
Is that true?
I don't know if it necessarily supports your thesis, but it certainly shows that like Netflix thinks in order to be a long-term viable product, they needed Warner Brothers. In a second, I'm going to go on a long rant about the evolution of the film business.
Yeah, and we want to talk about like why they want Warner Brothers.
Because I think understanding that and explaining that to our dear cherished listeners will give you a sense of what the stakes are here and have been since like the early 20th century. But like Netflix obviously thought we need Warner Brothers film assets, all their back catalogue. Immediately you would get the library of content they've produced over the past 100 years. That's good. You would also get their real estate assets, their studios, the depth of talent, all the people that work there on actually making content. Because Netflix is, not entirely, but outsources a lot of stuff. Warner Bros. Has a lot of stuff in-house. The HBO engine, like a powerful content flywheel. They're a hit factory. They produce a lot of hits. They obviously thought we need this and be willing to pay. And to be clear, obviously, if the Paramount offer gets up at over $100 billion acquisition cash,
yes,
that's fucking huge.
Yeah.
And to be clear, that is backed by, and they didn't put this in their offer that they were talking about to the media publicly, a lot of sovereign wealth from the Gulf.
Yeah, but that also includes the TV stuff.
It does include the TV stuff, but again, still over $100 billion for an acquisition. It's
a big number.
That's a huge fucking acquisition.
Yeah.
But even $72 billion is up there for the biggest acquisitions of all time.
This is why the Netflix business model confuses me, and I've just never really liked it because it's like, to me, this says, obviously for Netflix, one of the issues, and we talked about it before, is like they have to keep either creating or acquiring content in order to keep subscribers at all times. And like, that's fine if like, obviously you're generating $10 billion from subscribers and you're only spending, $1 billion on creating and buying content a year. Obviously that works out just fine. But like, it always seems like margins are not that high and it's expensive to create content and it's risky to create content. That's another like huge aspect of this, right? Like you don't know what to hit and what's not. You have to throw money everywhere in order to get it. B, they've been cutting down on like the amount of money they've spent. C, an acquisition like this is basically just, to me, like I look at it and be like, yeah, they really freaking need content. I get that their business model is like selling content, so of course they need content. But this is why it always like, to me, looks so shaky.
Yeah.
You're buying this huge library. I get that there's like a retention play on like, okay, cool. There's always something for people to watch. They can watch the old Harry Potters again. They can watch reruns, all this kind of stuff. But it is new content that drives subscription.
It is. And that's the tough thing. And obviously, Disney have gotten themselves into a position where it's like they have a really sticky back catalog where it's like if you're a parent, it's probably good value for you to have Disney Plus because that has, especially if you're in America, it has all the Disney classics, all the Disney animated ones, the Pixar movies, which kids watch over and over. It's got Bluey, that's in the US. So they've really invested in this whole idea of like massive back catalog. You can always throw this stuff on perfectly. Netflix doesn't have that currently. And I think they're kind of betting that Warner Bros. Will give them a bit of that, like Harry Potter, classics that Warner Bros. Has produced over many, many years, the superhero stuff. Because at the moment, there's not a lot of stuff that on Netflix, aside from licensed content, that you like go back and watch
like
again and again.
Friends and Seinfeld.
Friends and Seinfeld, again, I think we've talked about this in the past. They've licensed those for Netflix, and those are the things that people watch over and over again. And again, this is shows from the 1990s. Netflix knows a lot of the reality slop and like weird big budget shit that like hits your amygdala then shoots out the back of your skull and you never think about it again. Never think about watching it again, and Netflix certainly doesn't show it to you on its like home screen for the show again. So it's gone. So I think they're kind of like, we need something to anchor us. Because again, the golden age, or like the third golden age of TV, or whatever we just went through, where it was like
third golden age. Surely we got to move to like a new age,
Platinum?
right?
Yeah. But the era when it was like every streaming platform was investing crazy amounts of money into original content.
Yeah.
As an example, Disney Plus did a Star Wars show, Andor, which I thought was really good. I think it's like the best Star Wars thing that's come out in decades. Really good show.
Since episode 6.
Sure. Yeah. So however you want to put it, but it's really good. Its total production cost over 2 seasons of like 8 episodes each was $700 million. That's obviously not sustainable for anyone, let alone even Disney. I thought it was a great series. Maybe I'll watch it again, but certainly not as a regular revisit. And is it really driving subscriptions? Who fucking knows? Kind of absurd. I think Netflix realizes like we cannot just stay on this fucking treadmill forever where we're just like pumping out slop at extreme cost, ruinous cost. We need like that library and like the depth of production talent and whatever they've got over at WB. The interesting thing about Warner Brothers is that they just had a cracking year at the cinema. David Zaslav, say what you will about his strategy, and a lot of film people hate him, he just put out a year where Warner Brothers dominated the box office figures.
With what bangers did they put out?
Like Weapons, which was like a horror movie. I'm not even going to recite them.
Is that about my Deltoids?
Yeah, it's about... I'm not even going to bother with this, mate, because you don't watch movies.
No.
But they had a great year where they were knocking it. And when I say you're knocking out of the park at the box office, like it's down some absurd % from like the box office returns in the 90s.
Yeah, of course.
Because people don't go to the cinema that much.
No.
And this is the thing that the movie heads hate about the Netflix deal, is that Netflix not only doesn't like cinemas, is like actively hostile to them. Because every time you go to the cinema, that's like time that you could be spent on the couch watching Netflix.
That's some percentage, and I'm sure it's on a spreadsheet somewhere.
Absolutely.
More likely to churn.
Exactly.
Because
totally.
you don't need to watch it on Netflix.
Yeah, exactly. So like, they don't like the idea of like having a 2-month or like 1 month cinematic window. They're happy to put something in the cinema so they qualify to get Oscars, but then it's like straight onto the slot machine, watch it once and then never watch it again. Done.
Yeah.
Done.
Tell your friends about it. So here's the thing, right? Obviously, core to the entire business is like a shitload of content. New content to attract new subscribers, and I guess to a certain extent, new content to mitigate churn for people who really are only interested in the latest stuff. And B, then I guess the long tail to again mitigate churn. So there's always something that people can watch. People can come home, chuck the idiot box on, and just like let it run. And content is king. You know who has a shitload of content and it doesn't cost them any money?
YouTube.
To me, that is kind of the key competitor here. As well as, while we talk about the big movies and TV or whatever moving to Netflix, like the big, HBO and whatnot, at the same time, there's a more kind of silent move where you have like, what's his name? The Ranger late night TV show host? Conan O'Brien has like billions of views on YouTube. He's got like his own YouTube show.
Yeah.
And obviously the huge creators on YouTube, friggin' massive, bigger than TV. Obviously Mr. Beast, but like, and there's like one of them in every subgenre in the world. There's someone who's racking up hundreds of thousands, if not millions of hits per video.
Yep.
Million subscribers in friggin' underwater rugby. Maybe not underwater rugby.
But maybe.
But like every niche computer game in the world, every, niche subculture.
Yep.
Knitting. I'm sure there's someone just absolutely killing it on knitting.
Carrying up on YouTube. Knitting YouTube.
Who's got a studio, who's got producers and videographers now and a team, and like they're pulling it together. And obviously, YouTube don't pay anything. They pay a percentage of ad revenue to these creators. The Netflix kind of model was, the reason it's winning over traditional Hollywood is when you own distribution. The way to get movies in the past was through the cinema. And that was the only friggin' way. Then, obviously, if you're producing content, you sell it to the cinema first, you delay it, you get to license it to TV, and, there's a bidding war over who gets to watch it first on TV. You make more money there.
Selling DVDs finally, and VHS.
Yeah, DVDs, VHS, of course, and then finally to cable TV for, like, reruns and whatnot. And you can do that in every single market. All of a sudden, the internet opens up every single market all at once, and distribution is no longer limited to So therefore you have like an aggregator like Netflix who all of a sudden they're the ones that are the best at acquiring customers, blah, 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 who starts to dominate in that world. But at the end of the day, the actual best at that with those business dynamics of like pushing down prices for content, pushing down prices for consumers, but then like maximizing margin through distribution because you have zero marginal cost, blah, 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 because you don't have to pay for cinemas and you don't have to pay for fucking producing DVDs and you don't have to pay for all this stuff. At the end of the day, YouTube is in the better place than Netflix because their cost to create content is zero. And the cost to consumers is zero unless you pay for premium like I do. And you should too, I reckon. I've said time and time again, like one should do it. Your time is valuable, folks. Yeah, so again, in my mind, I always come back to Netflix is being squeezed by, on the premium content side, by like the Apples, Amazons of the world who are paying for this stuff and they don't really give a shit about profit to a certain extent. And then on the long tail content thing, by YouTube. That said, Netflix seems to be doing absolutely fine. And they're like...
Yeah, they're doing well.
They go on and on.
They are kind of like the default. If you own 5 fucking streaming platforms and you're churning out of some of them, Netflix is probably one of the last ones, on average, that you are thinking about churning out of. Apple is playing a completely different game. If you are someone who's like, I always want some great content to watch, I need to subscribe to something, you're not subscribing to Apple TV. They release a very small number of shows per year. They make it quality. They try to make it like Severance or Pluribus or whatever.
No, it basically just means your Apple One subscription. You know, I feel like it's just all about that.
Well, it's about that because Apple are like, we want like an aura of cultural cool around our subscription. Like we want to create these tentpole must-watch series. I don't think they want people to be like, oh, I got to sign up for Apple. It's more like, I just don't let my Apple subscription, which has a bunch of stuff, lapse. I don't.
Exactly. That's what I mean. It's like the Apple ones. It's like I actually don't do any of the fitness stuff. I signed up for fitness, but I actually don't do that anymore. But to be honest, I do like that show on Apple TV, and I'll just keep my Apple One subscription. Like, kind of that is what it feels like.
Yeah.
For the record, I did read an article about Apple Fitness Plus the other day. The real COVID era. Like you do your workouts with like someone. Apparently, the numbers are like utterly dog shit.
Oh,
like,
totally.
No one uses it, and they're in this position where they're like, they're losing money or they're not making any money at all. No one uses it, but they're like, ugh. The people who do use it will be so mad if we stop doing it.
If we don't turn off the content pipes. Yeah,
so they're just kind of stuck with this.
I don't
zombie business thing.
I don't want to go down the pipeline of talking about fitness stuff, but I think the big top level macro lesson you can pick up from fitness is that like it's the most faddish, slumpy business imaginable.
Yeah.
Look at Peloton.
Yeah.
Look at any number of fucking things. Unless you're like a subscription app that tracks people's like weight routines, where like that might be okay. Anything where you're like hanging your hat on some particular fitness trend, it will die in the ass within 18 months.
Yeah.
And people will think about some other shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if you're thinking about getting into like a fitness startup, let me warn you against it. But look, I agree with you on the YouTube point, and I think it's really interesting.
Because also, sorry, let me just finish the YouTube point and then I'll let you talk. Given as I've said multiple times again, I don't know that much about this shit. Well, I know about distribution and I know about business models, but I do not know that much about movies.
Cinema, yeah.
Or cinema and why you people pay money for this crap.
Yeah, that's right.
When you can you can watch like when
that
you can watch
gives you clear eyes.
It gives you clear eyes. I would much rather watch an 8-minute video. An entire city was robbed.
You did make me turn this on in the car while you were driving. A slop video called "An Entire City Was Robbed."
Anyway, what I was getting to is like, and this could be very wrong, but if you're 21 or whatever, and you know, kids grow up on YouTube, they grow up on like YouTube creators or whatever, are they then at some point all signing up for Netflix when they move out of home in the share house? Maybe they are.
I think the big takeaway is, and I know that Netflix does sport and does documentaries and all the rest of it. I feel like when you are talking about dramatic fictional content, you're not going to get your fill from YouTube.
There's something about the human condition that you're not going to get.
But I mean, like, obviously you don't watch a lot of...
No, I get it. Like, I read books,
scripted TV and film. But I think, all right, it's time for the rant, and I'll take you through this whole thing, which explains the whole core of the problem, which is that, and this is something that you would agree with as a business model, distribution is all that matters.
Mm.
In anything to do with any sort of media, distribution is all that matters. So go back in time and Producer Mark, if you're listening, you can put some sort of like rewind and orchestral swell sort of thing going. I don't really mind what you do. Go back in time to...
We're going to the printing press?
No. We're not going so far back. We're going to the dawn of Hollywood, the dawn of the cinematic age. But, you know, when Hollywood first started in the early 20th century, it was the studio system. The Hollywood studios, including Warner Brothers, including Universal, including United Artists, whatever, owned a completely verticalized model. They made the movies, they hired the actors, they owned the distributors, they owned the cinemas.
Yeah.
Right? So every single step, they owned it. And as a result, because they owned the cinemas, they would make a great movie that they would put a bunch of money into, and they would make the early 20th century equivalent of fucking slop. Horrible scripts, horrible acting. A lot of these movies have completely disappeared. The tapes have been destroyed, but they were out there. They were the slop of the early 20th century. And because they had the cinemas, they would just distribute it. They would show it, they would display it, whatever. And it was a money printing machine. People loved the movies. They would go to the cinemas, they would watch these movies. And this also included the studios completely controlling the way the actors, like they were basically property of the studio, you know. They would basically say to you, you need to lose 10 kilos or you're fired. Yeah. Which is a little bit different to what it is now. But in the 90s...
Like that poor woman from The Wizard of Oz.
Exactly. Totally. Anyway, in the 1950s, there was an antitrust case that came through, massive antitrust case, where the US smashed up that monopoly. And basically, they said, you can't own the cinemas anymore. You can't own the shelf space, essentially. That completely destroyed the model. Threw it for six, because all of a sudden, they needed to compete for what movies they were making, right? Again, this is all distribution. This is all this idea of like, how do you sell it? How do you distribute it? You know, it gave the distributors a bit more power. It gave the cinema chains a little bit more power. Not heaps, but a little bit. This all kind of like, they sort of spazzed out a bit trying to figure out how to make it work. And we arrived in the 1970s with the dawn of the blockbuster. Dawn of the blockbuster, Steven Spielberg, New Hollywood, whatever. It was the birth of like, it's very America-centric, but this idea of like a fully national media market where you could say, watch Jaws. It's a big fucking shark. Yeah. The concept is really easy for you, the audience, to grasp. It's a fucking huge shark eating people. Yeah. We're putting ads for that in every market across the United States. We spent a bucket load of money on it. We have like a big director name attached to it.
Bang a tune.
Bang a tune.
We know it.
Big.
Two notes. And we know it.
Banger. And as a result, like we are able to actually sell this movie to an entire national audience, essentially. International audience as well. Bang. That was like the way that the system accumulated. Now, the next part of it is and this kind of feeds into the ownership question. There was a period where, and this was during the time, this bigger business story, the age of the conglomerate, where all of a sudden, you know, American businesses decided, well, you know, I'm an auto parts manufacturer. You know, my job is selling auto parts to mechanics and manufacturing an industrial concern. Yeah. God, there are sometimes some downturns in my business. What if I hedged against that by owning a movie studio? Yeah. So when my main business is down, movie studios are up, or fucking my marketing business or my whatever, and you had these giant businesses that did 500 million things that were totally unrelated to each other. It was the dawn of the age of the NBA. You know, if these guys that know how to manage, doesn't matter what it is, whether it's selling laundry powder or selling Hollywood movies or selling auto parts, they can fucking do it.
Yeah, that's all efficiency.
It's all numbers on a spreadsheet. Yeah. Turned out that wasn't true. And that era went into the toilet.
Well, again, in America, still going hard in South Korea and Japan.
But the point is, Paramount was owned by Gulf and Western, which was an auto parts manufacturer. Columbia was owned by Coca-Cola, with the idea being, if we can sell sugar water, we can sell movies, and we can also use the movies to market our sugar water. It was like a big, big, dreamy vision. That didn't work. Turns out that didn't fucking work.
You needed pros.
Because it turned out, and here's the thing that every single one of these conglomerates figured out about content and movies, it's a really fucking hard business. It's hits-based. Yeah. So you need some bangers out the door. It's really lumpy. Sometimes it's down, sometimes it's up. And like, you know, it's really, There are lots of weird things that cause people to like want to go to the movies versus not go to the movies that is out of your control.
The weather.
The weather, stuff that's going on in the world.
Yeah.
Anything that might cause someone to just not be interested in going out. I mean, COVID was a big one, extreme example.
Yeah.
In the 2020s, but there's been many other things. Point is, but then eventually it slips into the world of home video. Again, this became almost like a packaged goods business. They brought in a bunch of guys who could sell goods in shops because you could all of a sudden you could sell video, VHSs, later DVDs, later whatever, all the rest of that.
Yeah.
Bang. That was like a whole new business model. You could start making movies that weren't that big in cinemas, but they made it back on VHS, made it back on DVDs. This essentially all cascades forward, and the massive bang that sort of ended the party was A, piracy, but B, Netflix.
Both piracy and Netflix are obviously two part of the same thing, which is back to distribution. The marginal cost of replicating one movie was all of a sudden zero. It wasn't reproducing it, sending it to a cinema that has to pay for rent and seats and cleaning and staff and only had a set amount of seats, and for every seat that wasn't filled, they're actually losing money. The marginal cost was zero. It's a file being reproduced for free, basically.
The same sort of dynamics that affected music, slightly different, but same sort of vibe.
But that changes everything. It's the same dynamic that affected music. It's the same for newspapers. All of a sudden, when you can reproduce something for free, your entire market is now the world. You don't exist in one small market. And that means your entire competition is every competitor around the world.
Yeah.
And what that means is then, all of a sudden, if your competitors is everyone in the world, including, as you say, piracy or whatever, whoever has the most efficient business model wins. In this case, efficient business model is the Netflix business model is paying, what is it now? It's $15 a month. But when it started, whatever, $10, $12. And by when it started, I mean,
I think it's 25 now or something.
Ignoring the sending DVDs in the mail thing, even now it's way more. It's $25.
Yeah.
It's $25. That is not a lot of money because they've worked out the most efficient business model. They can still take a margin by charging $25 and giving you their entire catalog of movies and TVs. And meanwhile, your Warner Brothers, who's used to selling movies to movie cinemas, you now have to work out how to acquire customers. Because that's the thing with the subscription service, and when everyone tried to do it, it's it is really hard to friggin' acquire customers. You need to acquire customers for less than they're going to pay in profit over the course of their lifetime. Work out all the technology, work out all the marketing that goes behind that, work out, everything that's going to lead to retention, blah, blah, blah. This is a completely different skill set to making a movie and then selling it to a cinema chain.
Totally. And this is why you see HBO Max, Paramount Plus, all these random subscription services that aren't Netflix, aren't Disney, from these other studios, have been kind of these cascading stumbles as they try to figure out how do we compete, how do we make it economical, charging the right amount of money for our library, and compete with Netflix, which, say what you will about Netflix, they are a pretty fucking slick operation.
Oh, absolutely.
They have some of the best distributed content delivery networks in the whole business.
Yeah. But this is the point.
Yeah.
Going from there being these limits on distribution, be they to networks, to theaters, or via physical retail stores through a DVD, to making it zero marginal cost, changes everything. It's a completely separate business model all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I think that's the fundamental point.
No, I think so. And and as we fast forward to now, Netflix buying one of the big old studios, and as I was just sort of suggesting in my rant just then, the studios have been kicked around between all these different buyers for many, many years. That's not weird. But the fact that it is their technological competitor, Netflix, that they've been freaking out about for 15 years now, more. If the Netflix deal goes through, which seems like they're the most likely winner, and to add to that, they're all lobbying Trump personally because there's going to be antitrust concerns no matter whether.
Well, Trump's already flagged there might be some antitrust concerns.
Totally. Because he's mates with Larry Ellison and David Ellison.
And wasn't he suggesting that he specifically has asked them to do a remake of friggin'... Oh, we talked about this, Rush Hour.
Yeah, totally. And Trump has a personal interest in Hollywood because he's got an old Hollywood obsessive. It's really funny. In his one of his statements about this, he was talking about Ted Sarandos, who is the CEO of Netflix. Seems like a pretty slick operator. There's been a bunch of reporting that Ted Sarandos has been absolutely sucking up to Trump, going to dinner with him, So has David Ellison. It is in both cases. Netflix and Paramount are just like, they're going to the King's Court to like plead their case.
Yeah.
But like, literally Trump in his statement about it was like, Ted Sarandos, he's a really smart guy. He reminds me of like Louis B. DeVille of MGM, who was like the CEO of MGM back in like the 1920s. Like this guy, he knows ball. He's a ball knower about like old Hollywood shit. It does seem like the Warner Brothers is favoring the Netflix bid. And not only is there antitrust stuff, there's also like foreign investment stuff. Because as I said, the Paramount bid is backed by a shitload of Saudi, Qatari, UAE cash.
Because Paramount is not a very big business itself.
Yeah.
Like, it's like Netflix is giving a bunch of shares with it and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, whereas Paramount's all cash offer for $105 billion. Again, that's a fucking tremendous amount of money. But anyway, linking back to what we were just saying before, if Netflix pulls this off, it will be the final conclusion of kind of like this tech first Hollywood war where it's like distribution is king. Netflix owns distribution. We're retreating to a model where there's only a few players. This is not a business that can sustain a whole bunch of different people doing shit.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, the customer can only, especially when it's subscriptions, they can only pay so much.
Yeah.
You know, part of the cable business model back in the day was like you paid $105 for Foxtel a month, which was a fair bit of money. You don't like sport. You don't watch ESPN. You don't watch Fox Sports.
Yeah.
Didn't matter. $5 of your subscription is going to Fox Sports, going to ESPN.
Well, this is one of the beauties of like the production houses being able to sell it to cable TV. It's like sell it to cable TV when 90% of people who are paying a subscription won't even watch it.
Exactly.
Get paid.
Didn't matter. You're getting money. They cross-subsidize the whole media enterprise. Now you can like narrow in and be like, I don't actually fucking care about sports. So I'm not going to pay for KO or I'm not going to pay for DAZN or whatever. I only care about scripted films. So I'm going to pay for Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever. I think what you'll see at the end of this deal if Netflix wins is like the price of Netflix goes up dramatically. I don't know about dramatically, but like maybe I will say it. I mean, they could assume that there are a bunch of people who are paying for Netflix and HBO Max right now who are only going to pay for one, and they're going to make it cheaper than both of them. But I think we could be moving to a world where like you are paying $40 a month for Netflix. And if there's a lot of content and a lot of library and a lot of depth and a lot of sport, because there's some sports stuff floating around there as well, maybe people will.
We're just recreating the cable bundle here, aren't we?
The cable bundle, but on demand and faster and more available everywhere. And no cinema screens to compete with you.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's kind of like where we're heading.
Well, yeah. The most interesting thing for me, though, is just like, I was ranting before being like, zero marginal cost changes everything. Netflix have, to a certain extent, the perfect production studio business model. Google has or YouTube at least, has the perfect business model for an era where like zero marginal cost, because it kind of starts from the baseline as free and then moves up and makes itself a platform, I guess, for other people. And now it has subscriptions for individual creators and blah, 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 blah. That's the most interesting thing for me is like, and you can't get these numbers, like, you know, YouTube watch times versus Netflix watch times versus money, like distribution fees to both creators on both platforms and blah, blah, blah. If someone could somehow create a model that compares all of those things in, because they're not like for like, but in as close as you can get to like a like for like manner, that would be very interesting to me.
I think so. And also,
no one can, because most of the numbers aren't public. For most of the business.
One final point I would make, just to drag it back to your like YouTube versus Netflix versus, you know, whatever else is going on in streaming. If you took the whole scope of stuff that's watched on YouTube and you carved out everything that's kind of like bouncing off some core IP product owned by a studio or Netflix or whatever. Like
every watch-alongs and like reacts and all that crap.
Every bit of YouTube content that's like based off Marvel content or other superhero content or like video game stuff or whatever, I think you would start to find that a lot of it actually does, like the studios, the video game studios, whatever, are kind of like the core thing that YouTube reacts to in a lot of ways.
It's a symbiotic relationship.
It's symbiotic for sure. And obviously, you know, we're leaving out the fucking DIY and guys that repair old radios, which I think is a big part of what's going on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of shit.
How do you get rid of onion grass?
Yeah, how, mate?
Well, I know you need to get a specific, it's like a powdered kind of poison. Now, fortunately, I didn't know this. I learned this recently. Maybe you all knew this. Maybe I'm talking to you, the listener. Maybe you knew this. James, maybe you knew this, but I didn't. But much like medicine, things come off the IP list on like chemicals for plants or whatever, so you can get generic versions. So I've been kind of always like, crap, I've got this onion grass problem. It's a certain grass that's been popping up in my lawn, very hard to get rid of because it has a fantastic evolutionary tactic, right? If you pull it out, the little pot of seeds at the bottom explodes and spreads itself further.
I respect that. As an evolutionary adaptation, I respect that.
I have always
big
respected
time.
it. I was like, damn, man, I've spent months being like, well, you got me.
6 billion years and you got to that. Good work.
Oh, yeah, exactly. What do I do about you? I don't know. I just keep cutting you off because the specific poison was like $800 for a tiny bit. And I was like, I can't do this. Then, due to AI, I learned that there was a generic version that I could cop for like $120, $110. There you go. So I bought it and I actually applied it today with some wetting agent. Didn't know what that was before I did this. It helps the spray. I got to put the powder in the sprayer with some water, and I add a wetting agent. It helps it stick to the fronds of the onion grass.
God damn. This is technology, folks.
Yeah. Anyway, I learned about a lot of that on YouTube.
Well, there you go. You're not going to get that on Netflix, are you?
No.
They're not going to invest in that programming. That has to come crowdsourced from YouTube. Final point before we move to our premium episode, and it's kind of, I don't know, maybe it's relevant to stuff we talk about in premium, who knows. But the other thing I think that Netflix is thinking about with this acquisition, the Hollywood Reporter actually reported that they are thinking about this explicitly. They see that the next revolution in content and distribution, as we were talking about, does not favor them, and that's generative AI. One thing that they're thinking about is like, once generative AI drives the cost of producing content to virtually zero, which is, potentially coming down the pipes, what can you do to sandbag your position? Have really great IP, which you can then license to specific generative AI products. Like, get into a deal where it's like OpenAI Sora, you cannot generate anything with Batman in it.
No.
But we've just struck a deal with, I don't know, Google for VO9 or whatever.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if you want to generate Batman content,
Yeah, you got to
well, you got to go to Google, and they're paying us $10 billion for that.
$10 billion. Take off these chains and say it again.